Now you have many decorative and satin stitches on your Butterick sewing machine. The decorative stitches, I'm calling those the ones that look like embroidery stitches, so they're quite fine. And the satin stitches are the more solid designs, if you like, where the needle goes over the design many times. But let's have a talk around and show you some of those. Number 3 is a stitch that I'm going to show you later on, and I love this one. It's perfect for patchwork and quilting because it looks as though you've hand sewn it, and it's a very clever idea. As we come down to the set of stitches here, you'll see that these are the fatter ones, these are the thicker ones, these are all of the satin stitches. And you've got lots of different designs, from a scalloped edge through to castles, block work. There's triangles, which could be Christmas trees if you embroider those around your napkins, in green. We've got triangles in different directions, large chevrons. As we come down again, we've got a few more utility stitches that you can use decoratively, like the crosses and the stitching, the ditch stitches and the blanket stitches. I'll explain more about those later. But these are the pretty ones that I mean by decorative stitches. Swirls and loops. We've got stars, Greek keys. There's hearts facing in 2 directions. And then we've got vines. That's a very delicate one. I think that's really elegant. Lots of kind of asymmetric designs. There are flowers of different types, little tulips there. Look, there's stars. And as you come down here, that's really pretty, like a scroll work, and then feathers and leaves and different types of leaves, and something for the kids as well. So we've got cars, caravans, butterflies, rabbits, boats, and it's just a really fun way of decorating anything for the kids' room maybe, or even around collars and cuffs on their clothing as well. Now it's really simple to choose any of these designs, so let's start off with one of my favourite ones, which I said was the vine here, which is number 54. So I'm going to go up to the programme and hold the plus down until it goes to number 5, and then press it independently, 2, 3, 4, 54, that's it, until it comes up to the number of the stitch that you'd like. Over here I can see that the needle is in the up position. That's fine, I'll leave that as it is. And then you have the stitch length and the stitch width, which you can override if you want to. But when you first switch it on and it has that oval shape around it, that's what's recommended by Butterick. So let's put your fabric underneath the machine and the presser foot down. And you can either use the foot pedal or you can use the speed control on the front of your machine just to start to sew. I'd always recommend that you sew a test piece first of all, just so that you get an idea of exactly what that stitch is going to look like, how much room it's going to take, as in what size it is, because they always look a little bit different when they're stitched out than the diagrams either in the manual or on the front of the sewing machine. You can actually see the fabric jumping backwards and forwards here as well. So don't be tempted to pull or push the fabric. All you're going to do is to guide it underneath the foot. So if you're sewing in a straight line, just make sure that you're sewing in a straight line. Now when you stop sewing, the machine will stop. So it won't wait until it's at the end of, in this case, a leaf or a vine. So you need to keep an eye on that when you change the different designs. Let's have a look at one of the fun designs. I'm going to choose the caravan, which is number 82. 7, 8, and then go down to 2, and then again start sewing. So you can see how easy this is. And again, remember, the fabric is going to jump backwards and forwards as the stitches go over and over to create your design. And little caravans. You don't have to be a dressmaker. You don't have to be making attire and garments. It could be an old school shirt or a shop-bought T-shirt that you just decorate around a sleeve or around a collar, or the panels on the front of a shirt where the buttons go through. How about a little row of cars or a little row of rabbits down there? There are lots of different ways that you can use the embroidery stitches. So just come up to the end of my row and we'll have a look at what we look like. So let me just cut the thread off, and there's my little row of caravans. Now the foot that I'm using for the decorative stitches is just the standard foot that comes on your sewing machine. You do have a satin stitch foot, which is this one. And this foot, it's clear, so you can see where you're sewing, but it's also got two metal bars underneath the foot, and those raise the foot away from the stitches slightly, so that it doesn't kind of squish them, because with the satin stitches, as I said previously, you're going to have lots of stitches going over and over and over and over, so that it is actually raised, they are dimensional. So let's take off the regular foot and just drop on, oh, move my thread out of the way, a satin stitch foot. Now with your satin stitches, I would definitely have a play with these, because you can significantly alter the size and the width of these stitches. So this time let's take a look at that one that I said looked like little upside down Christmas trees, which is number 22. So I'm going to go down this time. Oh, there we go, straight to 22. Now practice with this first, and I'll show you why. Now I'm going to stop here, and I'm just going to adjust the stitch length to its shortest. I'll show you the difference in just a second. And then I'm going to adjust the stitch width as well. Right, so now when we take a look at the difference between those three different settings, you can see the initial stitch here is quite zigzaggy and quite long. By shortening the length of the stitch, it then goes a little bit more solid, and then by adjusting both the length and the width of the stitch, it goes to a little bit more like an arrowhead, so it's turned from a Christmas tree to an arrowhead. So do practice with any one of the satin stitches so that you know that it's exactly how you want it to look before you commit to sewing on your project. Now I did mention one of my favourite stitches on here earlier on, which was that number 3, which is an heirloom stitch. So I can leave my satin stitch on here, it doesn't matter, it's my satin stitch foot, sorry. But what I am going to do is to change the thread at the top for this, which is a clear thread or an invisible thread. It's quite stretchy, it's very, very fine, it can be quite tricky, but this is going to be worth it. So I'm leaving my coloured thread, my navy blue thread in the bottom, and I'll just rethread with a clear thread at the top. Now do take your time with this, because it does curl very quickly, and do make sure that on the top of your bobbin there aren't any of those little nicks, you know, sometimes where you can keep the thread from coming unwound. We don't want that to catch. And this is going to go on the machine in just the same way as your regular thread does. And we'll go across, following the directions on the machine. We go down, up and around the take-up lever, back down again, through here, and then through the needle threader. Right. Now the next thing I'm going to do, well, I'll choose the stitch first of all. So I put the foot down, and we'll go to number 3, which is 0 and then 3. And again, have a practice on some scrap fabric first of all, because what I need to do now is to adjust the tension, which normally I say don't touch, and we're going to turn it right up. So the tension will go up to number 9. I'm going to go just before the number 9. And the reason for that, when the tension's tighter on the top, it's going to draw up the thread from the bottom, and that's what I want to see. I want to see the thread from the bottom as the main stitch, and you shouldn't see the stitch on the top, the thread from the top at all. So here we go. So again, it'll jump backwards and forwards, because it's creating kind of a back stitch. And that's what you end up with. which, as I said, can look like a hand-sewn stitch. You don't see the clear at all. If you really look for it and it catches the light, then you're going to notice it, but it does look like a hand stitch. But again, have a play with the different length of stitch as well, because you can make that longer or you can make it shorter. If you're going to use different coloured threads, that's a nice effect as well. Try and make sure that the thread on the top is very fine, like a quilting thread. The finer the thread on the top, the more it'll pull through the thread from the bottom, if that makes sense. So you could have this kind of effect, but with different colours of thread as well. So this is, I think, where your machine turns in from something that you need to do all of your alterations and your mending and repairing into something that you can really have fun with and get creative with. So do enjoy stitching out those decorative stitches.